So I'm a research manager at the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab at MIT. And I also, as part of that, run the Agricultural Technology Adoption Initiative, which is a research initiative that is designed to exactly try to understand the reasons that smallholder farmers are not adopting what should be profitable technologies for them on their small farms. When we first started this research initiative, we looked at the existing literature in economics about what is holding back poor farmers from adopting these technologies, and identified 7 different constraints that we believe are holding farmers back from doing this. One is credit constraints, so the farmers aren't able to purchase technologies because they don't have the money on hand. The second is risk. So agriculture, we know, is this very risky endeavor. There's bad weather shocks, there's diseases, and so the fear of this risk is keeping farmers from making investments, because that makes the investment a possibility of loss. Another is externalities, that there could be some positive things that they're doing, but they don't receive the benefits from those, so they choose not to adopt. Another is information. If you don't know about something, if you don't know how to use it, if you don't know it's profitable, you're not likely to employ it. Another is input and output market. So it may not exist in your network that you can actually acquire the fertilizer and the improved seeds. And more importantly, I think, you may not be able to make a profit from the produce that you're producing in the market that you're in. So if you don't have that profit motive as a poor farmer, you're not likely to invest in a technology. Next is land markets. We think that potentially if you can expand your land, you could maybe have returns to scale. And lastly, labor markets. Labor markets are kind of restrictive, and so you may not be able to invest in very labor-intensive practices if the labor markets are very constrained in the area. So when we looked at the literature, those were all the areas that we believed were constraining technology adoption. And so what we've done is we've provided funding to researchers to do randomized controlled trials in order to identify what the impacts of programs designed to tackle these different constraints. And so far we've funded principally projects in credit, risk, information, and some input and output markets. We think that one of the reasons that farmers don't adopt technologies is because they don't have access to funds. They can't find the money in their social networks. They have a hard time saving. Their banks don't exist in their areas to get loans. Or if they exist, the arrangements of the loans are not in a way that farmers can take advantage of them. So the farmers, either there's extreme collateral requirements, or the repayment on those loans doesn't fit the cycles that farmers experience on their land. So there are several different experiments that have been done to try to address these issues. So overall, we see uptake of loans is very low when they're done in this kind of traditional microcredit model with fast repayment. So what researchers have experimented in are a few different things. So the first thing is changing the collateral arrangements. Second thing is thinking about the seasonality that farmers face. And lastly, more on the supply side of banks, is to provide better information to banks about their potential clients. So on the first point of collateral, we did an experiment in Kenya. Our researchers, Tavneet Sori and co-authors, where they worked with dairy cooperatives to provide loans to farmers for water tanks. And the water tank serves as collateral, so it's an awesome form of collateral. You can't drive it away. It's easy to take away. It's hard to sell. So they created some different types of loans, and the sort of easiest loan for a farmer was one which had a very low deposit and the tank served as collateral. There was very high uptake on that, very good repayment, and there was effects on the time that girls spent in school because of this. So girls spent more time in school because they had a water tank, which is such a cool outcome from this agriculture intervention. Thinking about the seasonality, there are a couple of different agriculture loans that researchers have experimented with where they time the loan with the agricultural season. So either supplying the loan at the time of harvest so that So in that way, farmers don't have to immediately sell their crop where the prices are really low, so they can hold on to their crop. So the researchers provided a loan in a storage bag, so the farmers could store the loan, wait till the prices are higher, and then those farmers actually made a profit off of that because there's such great price swings in rural grain markets. So those are two ways people have done it. People have also, in Malawi, experimented with fingerprinting of farmers, because in Malawi there isn't a national identification system. And so fingerprinting allows banks to identify the farmers better, and so they can credibly threaten to not provide loans in the future. And so that should hopefully support support the banking system to go into rural areas. Another piece of this is risk, where we compare credit and risk. So researchers in Ghana did an experiment where they directly compared providing grants, so free money, versus providing free insurance. And what they found was that farmers, when they were provided grants, they made investments in their land, they bought fertilizer, they bought the things, but they also did this when they were provided insurance. So what that tells us is that farmers have access to credit. They can reach into that network of their own communities if they're protected against risk. And so that really suggests to us that risk constraints are perhaps one of the very important features that are blocking technology adoption by poor farmers. So I don't think that, I can talk about huge countries that have grown, but I don't think that's my expertise. It's more, specific interventions that we can think about that have really affected adoption on specific things. So I can talk about a few different examples, but one I'll talk about is in India. Researchers from UC Berkeley worked with IRRI, the International Rice Research Institute, to try to spread a drought and flood-resistant kind of rice. So this again tackles this risk constraint. So farmers will generally be planting, seeds that are less risky in order to protect against these bad outcomes. So in this experiment of flood-resistant rice, they gave away the seeds, farmers experienced it, it was a better technology, it performed better under flood conditions, and in particular because the poorest and most marginal people in the community had the worst land, they benefited more than the rich in the community. So it has this equality sort of effect to it. So the Indian government has now put a big investment into this kind of crop to spread it more broadly. So that's, I think, a big success in technology adoption there. And I could talk about more, but I could just keep going on and on about agriculture if you want, but I'll stop there.